2-3 weeks after the horrendous attack of October 7th, the Security Council assembled in New York, and it was opened by an address by UN General Secretary Mr. Antonio Guterres, and that's what he thought. You would be better say to lay ground for the debate. He denounced the attack by Hamas, but then added, it is important to also recognize the attacks by, recognize that the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum. The Palestinian people have been subjected to 56 years of suffocating occupation. And I'd like to deal with the two parts of that sentence. We can easily refute the numbers because the Gaza Strip was actually open both ways to Israeli and to Arabs, as Judea and Samaria were. And people streamed here and there, materials, who cared? People have relations and merchandise, etc., went in and out.
People, you could go down
But,
to the beach.
I'm sorry?
You could go down and go to the beach there.
People went to the
Right.
beach. Right. So, but the real question is, did Hamas launch the October 7th attack in reaction to suffocation suffered by the Gaza residents? And there are two paths, two ways to check on it, and this would be the first one. Okay, as mentioned, I work with memory, and on October 27th, a prominent Hamas leader, Musa Abu Marzouk, was interviewed in Russia Today in Arabic with a good Arab speaker and a mediator with Arabic, and memory published it several days later, 3 days later. These guys are really quick. He was asked a pertinent question. Many people are in Arab. Many people are asking, since you have built 500 kilometers of tunnels, why haven't you built bomb shelters where civilians can hide during bombardment? Answer. Two parts. Part one. These tunnels are meant to protect us, meaning Hamas, from the airplanes, meaning the Israeli airplanes. We are fighting from inside the tunnel. True. And then 75% of the people in the Gaza Strip are refugees, and it is a responsibility of the United Nations to protect them. In my words, we Hamas, we don't care for the Arab population in Gaza. We couldn't care less for them. And there are some people, 25, actually 35%, who are not defined as, not considered as refugees. So of course it was not a reaction to this suffocation. And Mr. Gutierrez was totally wrong in the first one. But then let's check something which has not been done, I think. We remember doing it under Yigal Kamon for now maybe a year or two, even before the current war. No. So, but were Gazans at large suffocated before October 7th? I will remind you that many people here, politicians and journalists alike, from time to time say we have to supply them with supplies to prevent a humanitarian crisis. I asked, I'll try to present the case, was there a humanitarian crisis in Gaza in the last, say, 20 years, maybe even before? So you see a part of it. This is Gaza City, a nice town. Gaza City, this is Arimal, this is the richest and nicest neighborhood of Gaza, Arimal. Gaza City again, Gaza City on the beach. Suffocating guys. But then you could say, well, there are always people who are quite well-to-do and can afford it, but others are totally poor and starving. So let's look at the numbers. There are a little less than 2.2 million people in the Gaza Strip. 1.4 million of these are defined by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency as refugees. We'll take that in a minute. Only, I would say, less than half of these live in refugee camps. This is their numbers. The other 800,000 are dispersed in towns and villages, and in Gaza itself, they don't live anymore in refugee camps. But what's the definition of refugees? According to UNRWA, a definition of refugee can stay with a person and his family and his descendants unlimited forever. Unheard of, only precedent pertaining to these people and in other parts of the Middle East, other Arab countries, and they're still there. So let's check on this. Here's the population according to age brackets. See the age on the vertical and number of people on the horizontal coordinate. And you see it's a young population. And let's look here. People who are 75 years old and older number only 20,000 and maybe less. And not all of them are refugee families, because some of them were born in Gaza and to people that did not move to Gaza in 1948 and 9. Only 20,000 of the inhabitants are older than 75, which means that only these 20,000 people are indeed refugees, result of the 1948-1949 war. A person who is rather old, 73 years old, he was born there. He was born to a family of refugees. His parents are refugees. But nowhere in the world is considered also a refugee, and his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. This is absurd. So now let's take a look at the refugee camps. So I'm showing here the Gaza City, as they call it in recent years. And you see marked 2 refugee camps, one on the beach camp, and the other is the Jabalia camp. And I'll let you guess which is which. Is this Jabalia camp or the Shati camp? Can you guess? We had a guess 4 weeks ago. Well, this is a camp of the 2011 Syrian refugees that fled from Syria during the civil war. This is how a refugee camp looks in its second stage. The first stage I could show you is tents, as we see it today in southern Gaza. This is the second stage. before a decision is taken. Caravans or something similar. So let's take a look at Shati refugee camp. This is Shati. This is Shati refugee camp. This is Jabalia refugee camp. And another Jabalia refugee camp. Maybe not a luxury, not a great place to grow in, but still, Jabalia again. Well, we know worse. We know worse in different parts of the world. Let's move southwards to the Nuseirat refugee camp. This is Nuseirat. This is the refugee camp. This is Nuseirat refugee camp. Let's go southwards to the Rafah refugee camp. So we're done with this issue. I'm telling you factually that in the Gaza Strip at large, there are 32 shopping centers. This is one. This is the entrance to the other one. Let's look at that. This is the Islamic University in Gaza, established in 1978 under total control of State of Israel, occupation. This is the Al-Azhar University, established 1991, 2 years before the Oslo Agreement had been signed. But again, you could say in many societies, there is a thin crust, a thin layer of people who are well-to-do in any society. And the rest, all the others, are actually poor. In order to tackle that, I took the time in the last, maybe more, 6, 7, 8 weeks after, and you would share this with me at my age, I tend less to become angry. I'm a little quieter than I was. But when I heard Mr. Gutierrez with his statement, I really got mad. So I used the computer and I used the internet. And these are the results, because now we have to have a general picture, which I think will surprise you. So I'll present now economic and social indicators for Gaza. This, by the way, are pictures of Gaza markets. There are impressive films by Al Jazeera from time to time showing the beautiful markets and the movement in the markets in Gaza. But maybe some people have enough money to buy such fruits, goods in the Gaza markets and other. If we use parameters, we have to compare them. They will be useless and meaningless without a comparison. So I thought, which will be a rational comparison? And I thought Jordan, an Arab country, not too far from Gaza, but never conquered by the State of Israel. So this would be a fair comparison. Life expectancy at birth, 2022 numbers, and you'll see when I give you the sources in each slide, there are good sources in the sense, I can check, but they are objective, they are international. They're not Israeli numbers, and they are not, usually are not PA numbers. Okay, World Health Organization. Life expectancy of at birth, the same. Real gross domestic product per capita, that is gross GDP, but corrected to inflation, corrected to prices corrected to the buying ability, purchase ability by the population. So that's for 2021. Gaza, it has a lot to do with the cheap, very low prices there, very low prices. So if you correct the GDP per capita to the prices, it becomes 5,600 in Gaza and about $1,000 less in Jordan. And the source here is the CIA World Facts. Extent of elementary education, 2022, Gaza 88, Jordan 85%, source of UNICEF. Extent of high school education, Jordan 62, Gaza 63%. It's not a Western country, it's not a well-developed country, but the numbers are similar, again, UNICEF numbers. Now, we go to an index, it's a little complex. In the UN, some years ago, I don't know, maybe 20, they cooked together the three former parameters that I presented: life expectancy, GDP per capita, and level of education. They cooked them, they multiplied the numbers, they took the third root out of them, very complex, and they came out with a 4-digit number. Almost 200 countries around the world, all countries around the world. All right? So where do we stand? No. Jordan, 0.72 and something. I didn't want to bore you with these numbers. Gaza, 0.71. And the source is United Nations Development Program, Global Data Lab. It's not my numbers. Where do they stand? According to their classification, it's intermediate. There are 60.
In comparison with Israel in that same statistic thing?
Well, so I don't think it's right to compare these numbers to Israel. And you don't compare them to India. I can tell you that Egypt is slightly higher, but the Philippines and Bolivia are slightly lower. That's Gaza. Next one. It's about the end. Number of hospital beds per 10,000. Jordan in 2017, these are the numbers I was able to gather, 15. Gaza, 13. Well, not in order of magnitude lower. And the source of is the World Bank, and again, say World Bank. Number of physicians per 10,000. We have about 35 now. So Jordan, 2019, 25. Gaza, less. 2020, 22. And Jordan at the time was greatly affected by the streaming of Syrian refugees, many of them. I was pretty surprised by the number for Egypt, which is higher, a little higher in Gaza and Jordan in the classification, but only 7 doctors per 10,000. Quite a miserable population. So that is, I think, a fair general description of the social economic situation. These are, I suggest, stable numbers. You don't arrive at these numbers and they don't fluctuate from year to year, 2 years. You don't move easily from a humanitarian crisis to these numbers. It doesn't stand to reason, right? So, all that for dear old Mr. Gutierrez. And then came October 7th. And of course, different war. Okay.